Welcome to Next Level eCommerce, the webinar series where top e-commerce experts share their advanced tips and tricks.
Yes, welcome everyone. Good to have you here. And finally, we actually are about to host the second session of the year for Next Level e-commerce, and quite a big one, to be honest, because AI actually brings us a massive opportunity. But if we talk a lot with our agencies, customers we work with, we also hear this is one of the biggest challenges actually they face, with traffic that is dropping, a lot of changes that also change the way we actually do search. And there we couldn't be more happy to actually have a great expert on this topic and actually to practically show you on how to do it and on how to actually turn this into your next growth lever and driver. But before we do so, we of course, here we are. So this is Jochem, this is me. I'm the lead for customer success, and Jochem is the product lead for ads. And we started Next Level e-commerce to level up your PPC skills, because Channable is all about connecting not only to specific channels but also connecting you with the best specialist. And that's actually what we saw happening all the time. Like great things were happening in our platform actually, but also outside of it. And we thought, hey, why not opening this stage actually to let the specialists and the experts in the field share the best practices, and not only the why, so why it matters, but actually also practically on how it actually works, so that after this webinar, you're actually able to do something with it, and you actually know on how to get started with it. And that's, I would say, the thing that drives us, and that's the reason why we're here, to actually help you be successful online. So that's also a bit what Channable does, but it's not only what we do. But we are basically here to connect you with best practices, but also to connect you to various platforms, such as Google, socials, PPC campaigns, but also on the creative side, so on socials. If you have any questions about this, more than happy to help you out with that as well. But today we're going to share all about AI and search, and how to get this well. But before we do so, I also have some house rules, as you can see. Be here. I know it's busy. You probably have a lot of emails opened, Slack or any other channels that are open there and getting notifications. But luckily, we have Niklas here that prepared a really, really good topic with a lot of good insights. And he also prepared quite well for it. And he is even not here in Germany, but somewhere else around the world, really early up for you. So make sure to be here and also to follow it, because then you will also get the most out of it. And that's also the best appreciation you can give to Niklas in itself. And as you probably have seen, we have the chat there, so you can leave whatever you like there. But if you have any questions, please do it in the questions tab, because there we are able, and you are able as well, to upvote it. So the best questions get the most votes probably, and therefore those questions will also be asked first at the end of the webinar. So if you see any questions popping in the chat, please help us out as well, because there's a questions tab, and otherwise we can not see the questions, and that would be a shame. Besides that, it might be that we sometimes go a bit over time, but everything is being recorded, so we rather have good quality than rushing through it. So we also allowed Niklas to speak more extensively if he needs to. So then you already know, but feel free. So everything is being recorded, so we'll share that at the end as well. And then now enough from me, because I think it's time to introduce our guest, isn't it, Jochem? Oh, no, that's not. So there was the cliffhanger maybe, because we also have a second or the third session actually coming up, which is with Ruben Runneboom, which actually still holds the record in number of registrants as well. Last time he did it about advanced bucketing for Performance Max. So if you are eager to see it, you can actually check it out, because it's really still a great topic that we help a lot of clients currently with. But we actually wanted to take it one step further, which is in 2 months' time, and they really built something amazing on how to actually use AI to build self-learning Google Shopping feeds. So there are great things that they're actually working on, which actually shows winners, losers, and it's amazing what they actually do with it, which will definitely up your skills in this part as well. And would definitely give you a lot of inspiration to start using AI in this as well, because you can work smarter, more effective with this. So feel free to sign up already. Also, that one will be recorded. And then now it is finally time to start introducing our guest and to talk about AI and how it's transforming search.
Yes, hello everyone and welcome Niklas. I wanted to say welcome from Berlin, but I just heard you're based in San Francisco right now, where it's like 8 a.m. So good morning. What are you doing there?
Correct. Thanks. I'm doing very well. Yeah, it's been great so far. I arrived on Friday and had some very productive days already.
Sick. Nice. Anything related to the topic?
Yeah, of course. So I'm visiting Ethan Smith from Graphite, who has built a pretty significant US-based agency based here in San Francisco. He originally started with SEO and has now also transitioned strongly into AI search. He works with pretty big companies like Webflow, Notion, Rippling. So companies where I would say most of them are pretty big in the US. But for example, Webflow has also built up a strong European presence. So probably a lot of you guys also know it. And yeah, we are chatting about AI search, about SEO, about AI in general, having some barbecue at his place. And then I'm meeting other people from Webflow, actually, from Intercom, from an AI search startup. So just try to bring you guys the best and the latest and the most impactful advice.
Nice. Yeah, that's why you're here. I asked, of course, ChatGPT would to invite for this topic, and then you showed up. Now, of course, I'm following you already for a long time. Because you're sharing a lot of great tips, especially practical tips on this topic. Because of course there is a lot of hype. For example, ChatGPT on agentic commerce, and then the next day ChatGPT killed their plans for it. So there's a lot of hype, but there are still lots of tips and tricks that you can do today to rank. And maybe about that topic, what do you think is the impact of agentic commerce and ChatGPT killing it?
Yeah, so I think the idea of having a seamless checkout experience within the app you're already using, like ChatGPT, it's a great idea because it can create a really good user experience. But I have always been skeptical about it. And honestly, I was a little bit two-sided because on the one hand, I saw Meta, for example, killing their native checkout experience July, I think, or August last year, so 2025, where I felt, okay, this is rather a sign that this will not be successful. And then on the other hand, I felt like, okay, but AI is making things possible that haven't been possible before. So maybe we should give it a chance. I think, like, my analysis of the situation with ChatGPT is that if you have a company that has like a lot of users and is generating decent revenue, but also burns a whole lot of cash because you have to build up data centers, you have to keep up with Anthropic and everything else, native checkout experience in ChatGPT might not be your biggest growth lever. This is why they probably abandon it. So, but I don't know if this will come back in the future. I think it could be interesting, but yeah, we also don't know if the move is connected to just not a lot of people using it. So yeah, it will definitely be an exciting space to watch.
Nice. Yeah, makes total sense. And I would say with that, let's go into the topic of today. Turn AI search into your next growth driver. And with that, I want to give you the word again, Niklas.
Yeah, thank you so much. So happy to have you all on here. Maybe a quick overview what we'll cover today. So I basically brought 5 things. I'll try to make sure that we are as concise as possible and that we optimize for as much value in as little time as possible, but still cover it in enough depth. But we'll talk about how big the impact of AI search really is today. We'll talk about 3 growth levers. So on-site content, product feed, and offsite content. And then we're closing with an action plan that should give you like a good starting point on what you can do maybe today, although in Europe it's already like late afternoon, so probably rather tomorrow. But yeah, that being said, I want to start also with a quick first poll here. And I want to understand how your team is currently thinking about AI search, or how are you currently thinking about AI search? So not on our radar yet, aware but not actively working on it, actively optimizing for it, or already seeing the first results. So I'm definitely voting D here, because in the work we do with clients, we definitely see a lot of results already. So I'm seeing the live results here coming in. I think everybody can also see it if they click on polls in the bottom right corner, right? So you can also see the results live. It's very interesting. So I thought that probably there's a lot of awareness, but there's still maybe some hesitation or some lack of clarity about how to work on it. A lot of people, I think, like 34% actively optimizing for iSearch already is also strong. So to you guys, also very interesting that you're already working on it. I think it's a testament to the audience of Channable, like very tech-savvy people, very smart people. So this is definitely cool to see. But yeah, let's start with framing the whole topic a little bit. So as you guys already said, like there's a lot of hype. So I'm not a hype person at all. I'm rather skeptical about hype. So this is why I always look for data, like for data that allows me to paint a clearer picture. And obviously data can be flawed, and it's always a question of how can you trust the data. But generally speaking, I like to look for that. So this is why I brought a couple of data points also to make sure that maybe all of you in the audience that are not actively optimizing for iSearch yet, that you have a better argument internally, if you are maybe not the decision maker for that, to make the point that this is substantial and that you should start optimizing for it. So I brought a little screenshot from the funding round announcement that OpenAI did. So there, I don't know, actually, I think it was 500 billion or 50 billion, or yeah, an enormous amount of money. And in there, they put in their current weekly active users. So the data, the last data point that was shared was at the release of GPT-5, and I think it was either 700 million weekly active users or 800 million weekly active users. But ChatGPT alone is now close to 1 billion weekly active users, which is huge. Obviously, already, like for full transparency, Google is significantly bigger, one point. And the other point is there are also a lot of other AI interfaces or AI search interfaces. And obviously also not everybody in these 900 million weekly active users is using ChatGPT just for search. So there are various use cases, but we'll look into that also more deeply. There was a study that was done by, I think it was Harvard, with OpenAI about how ChatGPT is used. So this is now already live since mid last year. And the data that was taken for this study was collected from May 2024 to June 2025. So you could argue that this is not like the most recent data, but it's quality-wise one of the best data points we have to understand how people actually use ChatGPT and also how they use AI search interfaces. Because we do not have this like in-depth data for other interfaces like a Gemini or an Anthropic, like a Claude. So we go with what we have from ChatGPT and we try to draw conclusions for that. So what you can see here is that the predominant use cases, at least for consumer use, is a practical guidance. So we'll look at what this means in a second, and then seeking information. So I think these are two buckets that can definitely be connected to e-commerce. So they might not necessarily be connected, but there is a connection. At writing or multimedia, which basically means image generation, there's not really a connection, because if you ask ChatGPT to generate a cartoon version of your friend's image that you did after the soccer game, I don't know, there will probably not be a case where ChatGPT recommends a cool product that you might have in your store. So we go with practical guidance and seeking information here. And if we dive deeper into the categories, and obviously I put the links also in the slides, so you are able to check the data for yourself. But if we look at practical guidance, it's the green bar, and seeking information, then we can see how this is actually split up. And for us, obviously, the most interesting bucket is purchasable products. So where based on the prompts or like the chats that are analyzed, people are actively asking for or looking for purchasable products. Now you could argue that 2.1% here from the total is not a lot. But if you keep in mind, and if you just say, hey, the percentage stayed the same, and if we work with 900 million weekly active users, it's 20 million people looking for purchasable products on ChatGPT. This is big and small at the same time, because if you look at the total population, and especially where ChatGPT is used, so it's not only used in Europe, it's also heavily used in India, it's used in Pakistan, for example, then obviously if you split it up between different countries, it might not be so big for like, let's say, the Netherlands or for Germany. But if we look at the growth curve that ChatGPT had, I think it's pretty interesting that there are already so many people actively looking for purchasable products on ChatGPT. And this is obviously the narrow view. I also feel like it makes sense to look at the extended view, because the extended view also factors in when people are looking for specific information, and we don't know 100% which prompts were classified as what, but we will have an example of that also later. But if someone asks for, is it better to use two 24-inch monitors or one ultra-wide monitor, we're not sure. This could also very well be specific information and not purchasable products. So because purchasable products could be, hey, which monitor, ultra-wide monitor, do you recommend? So this is not clear, and I want to be very transparent about that. A lot of the things in the AI search space is not as clear as it was with Google, with Search Console and with Google Ads data and with Keyword Planner data, etc. And we're unsure if there will be a point in time where it gets clearer. Just as a quick reminder, if you look back in the timeline of Google, so Google introduced the Google Ads, back then called Google AdWords product, in either 2000 or 2001. I think it was 2000. And Google then only introduced the Google Search Console product, back then called Google Webmaster Tools, in 2006. So we're now looking at obviously a landscape that is pretty transparent in a lot of different ways, but it could very well be that a ChatGPT now, with their first starts of the advertising product, also gets some pressure from advertisers, and then over time, probably not in the next 4 weeks, but maybe in the next 1 to 2 years, also introduces some sort of Search Console, whatever product. And then if you look at the practical guidance bucket here, there's something that is pretty broad, which is called how-to advice. But if you think about something like, how can I improve the cable management at my desk? This is a question that can obviously also lead to purchasable products. Because if someone says, hey, you can use, for example, like this cable management setup or this cable management setup, then the user only has to say, hey, can you recommend products? Or like, where can I get this? And then obviously ChatGPT will recommend products. So I think I cannot tell you that if someone asks for how-to questions, that it will inevitably lead to a purchase decision. But I can see cases where there's a strong connection between asking how-to questions or even asking questions around health and fitness or beauty or self-care. So if I say, I have problems with my skin, etc., what can I do? Then there might be some things that you have at home, like, okay, you can use this or you can use that, or this is like something that grandmothers used to use for that problem. But it could also be that ChatGPT says, hey, maybe you need this type of cream or that type of cream. And then you say, okay, interesting. Can you recommend certain products? Or what are products that are vegan, or products that are available in Berlin, or products that are available in San Francisco, etc. So also here, I think it needs a little bit of creativity to see the journeys. But obviously, a user journey does not start with asking for a product. If a user asks for a product, there has been something before, and there has been a research journey before. Yeah. Also, if we try to look at it from a different angle, so this was the angle of OpenAI publishing their own user data, and then us looking at how the Harvard OpenAI study basically looked at the use cases. Another interesting data point that was only recently published by my friend Ethan Smith from Graphite, he looked at similar web data across web visits and mobile app sessions across the top 5 AI interfaces. So ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, and Grok. And then also at the top 6 search engines, which is Google, Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, Baidu, and Yandex. And he looked at it worldwide and then US. And something that he found is very interesting. So maybe some of you remember that the discussion was either, yeah, Google won't be dethroned and like AI won't be significant. And then on the other hand, we had discussions, yeah, AI will be everything soon and Google will go down and it will be doomsday. Neither of those are true. So it's not zero sum. So zero sum means you like, it's just the split changes in. So as we see the data now, and I also put the link here, you can draw your own conclusions. It's actually additional usage. So obviously Google has very slightly, or traditional search engines have very slightly lost market share, so to say, but only very, very tiny. And AI has just come on top. And the AI usage here is also um, filtered for search use cases. So based on also the OpenAI data around how people use OpenAI and how the prompts can be classified. But obviously this is like, it's still data. There's a lot of interpretation in it. But as we can see it, it's actually a channel that comes on top and something that we should factor in already in our strategies without abandoning what we have already been doing. So it's always like a strong connection between the two. So I'm not this. I think now I also finally proved the point that I'm not a hype guy. So a lot of the things you have been doing, if you have been actively working on your SEO presence or on things like your product feed, a lot of that is still valid. There are certain things that are not valid anymore. So a couple of things from SEO, I would rather say you can abandon that. So something like link building for just quantity, because a lot of low quality links won't move the needle anymore. But a lot of the things that you've done there will also help you with AI and with AI search and GEO, AEO, however you want to call it. Now, let's quickly look at how actually, well, where we have like entry points of how to make this a success for us, because I think this is the key point. Now we laid the stage, or we set the stage a little bit, and I made just a couple of examples because I always like to have examples here. So if we look at ChatGPT and how an e-commerce user journey could start, it could be this question I already mentioned, like dual 24-inch monitors versus ultra wide. And some people will tell you prompts are super long, etc. I'm not sure. So it might be a longer prompt, but it might also be a very short question like that, because we, as like people that grew up with Google, we are conditioned to a keyword-driven search. Like we as users, we do it. It's rather unnatural for us to type in, hey, I'm currently sitting at my desk and I'm wondering, I have these 2 dual 24 monitors in front of me, but I have this friend and he is using an ultra wide. So does it make sense to also get an ultra wide? I think this is super inefficient and not a lot of people will do it. There will be cases where you use ChatGPT or Claude as a thought partner, where you might have very long prompts. So I've been working on like an internal company app, and I have extremely long prompts where I actually like dictated 5 minutes to Claude Code some stuff. But from a consumer perspective, I think we will have something like that. And what you can see here is if I ask this question, you can see that on the left-hand side, you have the answer from ChatGPT. You probably already know it. And then on the right-hand side, we have the sources. And I deliberately opened the sources tab here because for some people, it will be very clear. For others, it won't. So I just want to make this very transparent. The answer from ChatGPT is not just random. Like, it's random in the sense that LLMs are probabilistic systems, but if ChatGPT determines that for your request, for your prompt, it needs to pull in fresh data, there are certain criteria, would be too much to go into detail here. If it needs fresh information, it will perform a web search. And when it performs the web search, it will use the content from the sources to ground, and grounding means to influence its answer. So if we see here that, for example, the dual 24 monitors under pros says more flexibility, and you can see this very little pill there, which says Alibaba, this piece of information comes from the Alibaba source that was used in the grounding process. So it's not just out of nowhere. One quick note, there will be prompts where ChatGPT does not perform a web search, then there are no sources, then the knowledge comes from the foundational knowledge, or the answer comes from foundational knowledge of the model. In these cases, my recommendation would be stop thinking about it, because influencing foundational knowledge of a model doesn't really work. Like, the only option you have that I always say is you can decide to become a household brand. So something like an Audi or something like a BMW, etc. So like if you become a household brand, that means a lot of press coverage, a lot of media coverage, blah, blah, blah. This will somehow bring you into the foundational knowledge. But is it a good strategy? Not really. It somehow is just the consequence of becoming a household brand. So the only option you have really to start thinking about how can I get into these answers is if the model performs a web search. So your initial goal is to understand, hey, what could my potential customers ask a ChatGPT or Gemini, etc., that triggers a web search? So if you can only come up with things that people might enter that do not trigger a web search, you have to dig deeper. Ask customers, etc., speak to users, speak to previous purchases, etc. Because this is a very important point. Now, I think very important is users will probably have conversations. So this is something where I feel like this is very true. Users will ask follow-up questions, and it will not be like with Google, you do a search, you click, you go away, a day later, you search, you click, you go away. It will be more seamless. And that means that maybe it's obviously an example. A follow-up question to my initial prompt could be, which ultrawide screens would you recommend? Because maybe ChatGPT convincingly made the point that ultrawide is nice, and the sources also made that point. Now I want to have a recommendation of products. And now here you can see that we have product recommendations in the forms of product carousels. And here it basically gives me a selection of options. And if I click on one of them, I get this like sidebar panel. Obviously on mobile looks a little bit different, but I took desktop screenshots here because they're better to put on these slides. I invite you also to just try it out yourself, like use ChatGPT and do something for your own brand and just go through it, because there's nothing better than just really seeing what users will probably see. But we will have this like recommendation of products, and then on the side, we'll have the different stores that basically have this in store. So, and you can click on visit here, and then you will be taken to Cyberport. So I still did these examples or the screenshots in Germany. So Cyberport, MediaMarkt, these are like German online shops. Now, this is ChatGPT, and I made the point that ChatGPT is huge and AI is huge, but Google is still even bigger. So this is why we obviously also have to look at Google here. And for Google, I looked at AI mode, and I looked at AI mode because I think that we will not have like the classic search and the AI overviews and the AI mode forever, but it will be somehow a more seamless and like connected experience. I'm not sure if it will be AI mode, and I don't know when, but I think it's always good to look like 1 or 2 hills ahead. And so I was looking at AI mode here. But the principles of AI mode are pretty similar to AI overviews. So you can also apply that here. Now, if I ask AI mode, the experience is pretty similar. Like I said, what's better for work, dual 24-inch monitors or ultra-wide? And you can see it's looking very, very similar. Like in Google, the only big difference really is that the sources on the right are visible immediately. On ChatGPT, it's not. I had to open it up for you guys so I can show you. Here it's more visible. I think this is due to the pressure Google has faced with sending less and less clicks, and then maybe also fearing. So this is not legal advice here, and in any sense, it's just my opinion. So maybe Google also fearing some anti-competitive lawsuits in the US if they do not show like the sources and from publishers, etc. So, but it works pretty similar. You can also see these little pills where it basically tells you where did this information come from. Sometimes it's from one source. Sometimes you can also see this little pill at the top intro paragraph, it says box.co.uk+3. So basically the information does not only come from one source, but from 4 sources. So it's a mixture. It's like a synthesis of the information from there. And if we then also here do like a follow-up question, so when asking for products, you get an extended version of recommendations, which means that if I ask which 34-inch ultra wides can you recommend for work, it still pulls in sources, but you can see at the right, if you look this little bar, that the source here is Google. So actually it's not a website or something, but it's from Google. So you can see it below the different cards at the right. And in the main screen, the main response, it's also looking a little bit different to ChatGPT. So it's a little bit more, I would say, extended. So you have the product, and then also you have reviews, and you have like these little, this is highly recommended by PC, Mac for office workers and features and display. So this is a little bit more extended than on ChatGPT. And clicking on a product here, also interesting. It's pretty similar to ChatGPT, but it's obviously also, it's more natively connected to the whole Google shopping experience. So you have multiple images, you have things you might know from also the Google shopping environment, where you have like these little badges, energy saving, might be also others, and then you have the different shops and you have prices, etc. So this is pretty similar. And I mean, obviously now we know how this looks. The key question is, how can I be part of what users see here? I think this is what we really have to talk about. Now, before we dive into that, I want to quickly start with another poll, which is how aware is your team of the different levers to optimize for AI search presence? So A, don't know where to start, B, got some first ideas about it, C, already implementing first things, or D, knowing exactly what to do and how. So let's quickly look at the results coming in. So we already got 40 votes. It's a head-to-head between got some first ideas about it and already implementing first things, got some first ideas about it. It's a bit stronger. Hopefully you already have some first ideas also based on the quick introduction here. Don't know where to start, still 12%. No worries, guys, this is totally fine. Knowing exactly what to do and how, this is also rather small. So that's good. I think then you've come to the right place. So then looked at the different levers, starting with on-site content. We already talked about the sources, and we know how this whole interface looks like. And I think it was important to really understand how this works to be able to also see how to influence it. Now, to be part of the answer, you have to be part of the sources. I mean, this is something that is probably trivial. But the key question is, how do I create or optimize on-site content, so content on my site for AI search? And I brought basically 4 different things where you can start. So the first one is you have to know what users care about. And this is something probably you might say, yeah, I want to have something actionable. Like this is not really actionable. But please trust me, this is super important. So you really have to understand what people care about, what they search, what questions they ask, because we have this lack of transparency. We do not have ChatGPT Search Console data, etc. So we have to have other sources that inform our decisions. And ideally, you do first-party research, which could be connected to your users, to your purchasers, to past purchases, etc. Maybe also with like polls, etc. But you can also use something like Reddit Answers. We'll show it to you in a second, because this can really provide a nice shortcut. So we will go into all of the different bullet points in detail after I like basically show them to you. So the second thing is know what AI expects from your content. So you have to check which content gets cited. And I showed you an example here for the monitors and with Alibaba, but it might be completely different for your vertical and your products. And which questions people ask about your product, or which questions AI expects you to answer around the products. Now, the third is you have to know which content is worth creating, because you have to prioritize content with a clear connection to the purchase decision, or let's frame it differently, you have to create content that also allows you to be part of the web search and grounding process. So if you create content where if I would ask ChatGPT for this type of content or questions around the product content, and it doesn't perform a web search, this content is not worth creating. So creating something like, what is a CRM content? I know it's from the software space, but what is a CRM? This content doesn't make any sense anymore, because if I ask ChatGPT, it won't do a web search. On Google, obviously, it might be the case, but what should be the incentive of a user to click on it? I think it's 0. And then fourth, you have to know how to build the content. And for that, there are like a couple of key points. Obviously, you could extend that immensely, but I'm not a big fan of like these 100-item lists and you have to do all of the things. I think you have to get a few key things right, and then you're already like in the top 10% or top 15% of websites. So optimize for user intent, information gain, comprehensive topical coverage, and LLM retrieval. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a sec. Now, talking about user research, Reddit answers. Just go to reddit.com/answers, and you can ask Reddit something like, what keeps users from buying an ultra-wide monitor? And Reddit will source a response across all different threads and discussions and comments on Reddit. So it's basically Reddit mining, and it can help you really see what users care about. And obviously, caveat here, it might be that your vertical, your product, your brand is not discussed as much on Reddit. Could be the case, but I would at least try it and not have like a prejudice about, oh, this is not happening on Reddit. Oh, this whole Reddit thing, I don't get it. Yeah, I didn't get it either. But Reddit answers make so much sense. I mean, look at the depth here. Like, what keeps users from buying? Distortion in games. Many gamers find that ultra-wide monitors can cause distortion on the edges of the screen. I would have never thought about it. Like, this is something that's like super, super deep and in the niche. Then something like desk space and ergonomics and managing multiple windows. Some users find it challenging to manage multiple windows on an ultra-wide monitor. These things, and it's a very small extract from the whole response you got. And you can go to the threads, you can look at it, and you really get a feeling also based on how many people reacted to the thread, how many comments are there. Is this relevant? Is this meaningful or not? But this can really provide a good starting point. Then check which content gets cited when asking questions around the product. This is already clear. We already looked at that. And I think it's just important to really see, hey, can I also create content around that? And like, what is this content missing? So, and obviously, can I also create multiple pieces of content? Because Alibaba here, for example, they're also mentioned like multiple times, probably because they have a really strong comprehensive topical coverage. So this is something that you have to closely understand to see which questions you basically should answer. Also, always informed by audience research. And then third, prioritize content with a clear connection to the purchase decision. And I brought like 4 very simple examples. You can expand this obviously way more, but something like X versus Y. So dual 24-inch versus ultra wide. It's something that is clearly connected to a purchase decision. Also, if you think about you maybe are a retailer and you're having multiple brands in there, you can create like your own listicle, so to say, X best category for criteria. So the 7 best gaming monitors with 100 hertz. So could be something that you don't. So probably it's sourced a lot, as in software space, for example. If someone is looking for the best CRM software, listicles are often sourced as something in the grounding process. And then also something that might be meaningful to users is a price point, like X best category for price point. So 5 best espresso machines below 1,000 euros. This is also something that if you maybe see in the audience research that a lot of users care about, hey, this is very expensive, etc., could be a good inspiration for you to create content around that. Or also something like how to, and then the use case of your product, and I already made this example, how to improve the desk cable management. Because if you think about certain things that people have to accomplish, there might be cases where people can accomplish this thing like without the product easily, but there might also be things where people just need the product, and it makes a lot of sense to use the product for it. So then it makes sense also to create content about it. And then lastly, optimize for user intent, information gain, comprehensive topical coverage, and LLM retrieval. So I have 4 things to consider here, because I want to make it actionable for you. And if I put 20 things on the slide, it doesn't really make sense. So the first one is put yourself in the shoes of a user and really try to help them solve their challenge in the most convenient way possible. So if someone is looking for the best espresso machines below 1,000 euros, it doesn't really make sense to have a super long article, etc., and then put like your recommended product or put like a table that easily and quickly compares the products at the very bottom. You should put it at the very top, because a lot of users don't have a lot of time and they basically skim the page. So this is a very simple example, but you really have to make sure that you do not think inside out, like what's best for me as a retailer, but think outside in. What's best to help the user, because this will also allow me to serve the user best. Then second, focus on adding something new to existing content so that users and LLMs obviously gain net new information from your content. So if you have done a test with certain products, and even if you just have like some interesting things to tell, or your opinion even maybe on the best espresso machine, add it to the content. Because if the content is basically just a remix of everything else that is out there, it's hard to become a cited source. And then third, ensure that you cover all aspects relevant to a user. You can verify this with audience and topical research. But for example, for espresso machines, if a key buying consideration for people is, if I buy an expensive espresso machine, I probably also need a better mill, like to ground the beans. Then this should be part of the content. So it can't be left out, because AI, in whatever sense, I know it's so super broad, is looking for comprehensive coverage of information. And the better you do this, the more chances you also have to be cited multiple times, like with your content piece as basically the lighthouse piece. And then use elements like key takeaways or tables or lists to ensure easier LLM retrieval. I mean, this is not scientifically proven in any way, but having something like tables or having something like lists, we often see, even if you look at how the responses from a ChatGPT, for example, looks like. So let's just, for a quick reminder, look at how this response is formed, even like how AI gives us the response. It's only very short paragraphs and a lot of bullet points. So there's a sign, because obviously AI believes that people are better off with bullet points and like quickly skimming things. And we should also mimic this without like sacrificing content quality. It could also have an intro paragraph, and then you have a list, and then you have a table, but like mix it up. It doesn't make sense to have like super long, like classic SEO back in the days, super long content, just wall of text. This won't get you anywhere. Then second lever, we'll speed it up a little bit. But the second lever is really, this is like super important, because ChatGPT, we've already looked at that, these product carousels. ChatGPT is using a very sophisticated mechanism to recommend products. And I just want to make sure that everybody in the audience really understands this. So this is this very sophisticated mechanism, which is called Google search. So what ChatGPT is basically doing, and so for everybody that didn't understand, it's a joke. Like I made a joke. So ChatGPT, and this is very fresh research from my friend Tom Wells from Peak AI, an AI search visibility monitoring software. I have no incentive to recommend them in any sense, but we also use it at the agency. And they did a study of 45,000 product placements in ChatGPT and found that basically 83% of the products recommended there have very strong matches, and strong matches means almost exact match of the title, of the product title, to Google search. So what basically ChatGPT is doing here is they're performing a search on Google organic shopping results. So I know you guys might think there's this ChatGPT product feed, blah, 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 etc. What about that? Yeah, sure, it's there, but it was probably intended for agentic commerce, and maybe it's also intended for something around the advertising product. But right now, we have overwhelmingly clear evidence that when ChatGPT recommends products, it takes them from the organic Google shopping results. And around this whole like exact match and strong match, etc., I recommend also to check out the even more technical write-up of this whole study that Tom performed on Search Engine Land, where basically they have compared exact match of the product title on ChatGPT with the exact match of the product title on Google Shopping, and then also very strong match, which maybe meant that one character or two characters are just different, and then strong match. So you can look at that. They built a very sophisticated mechanism for that. But even if you would say, okay, I'm skeptical about the very strong and the strong match, if you just look at the exact match, so it's exactly the same title, it's almost 50% of the products that match with Google's top 40 organic shopping lists. So the evidence is overwhelming. And I know I mean, it sounds strange, but it also makes a lot of sense because it was very hard for Google to build this whole product graph and everything. This is a very sophisticated project they've worked on for so long. Now, do we really believe that ChatGPT can basically rebuild this whole thing in a matter of months? Maybe, but it's also like it takes up a lot of resources. And as I said earlier, they have to build data centers, they have to do all these kinds of things, they have to bring AGI to the world. I don't know. It seems that they're just looking for a shortcut to provide a better consumer product experience. And the key thing for us is the key learning already. If we're present in Google's organic shopping results, we cannot, at least right now, we cannot influence it with ads. But if we're present in the Google organic shopping results, then there's a high chance also for us to be visible in the recommended products on ChatGPT. And interestingly, also products that rank higher in Google Shopping, I mean, makes also total sense. Products that rank higher in Google Shopping are also more likely to appear earlier in the carousels. So you can basically read this chart in a way that on the left axis, you see the Google Shopping product position. So basically from 0, but yeah, maybe from 1 to 15, and then the ChatGPT carousel position. And the lower your Google Shopping product position is, the higher you're also rank as the lower, I mean, the higher. So the better you are in Google, the better you are in ChatGPT. So don't want to confuse you guys. The better you are in Google, the better you are in ChatGPT. So now the question is obviously, how do I optimize for Google's organic shopping products listing? Because maybe you have thought about it before, but maybe you have also just used the product feed for Google Ads, which is also like totally fine, makes a lot of sense. We've done that too. But I think there are 4 things you have to get right here. The first one is, and this sounds too simple, but ensure that your products are eligible for showing up in free listings. We'll look at that in a second. Then optimize the product titles towards discoverability and do the same with product descriptions, and then aim for a healthy amount of positive reviews. Now let's look at it in a little bit more detail. I pulled up a Google Merchant Center actually from a client where I saw exactly the problem that I suspected, and maybe you guys could also have it. So you definitely have to check. So if you check your product status, you have to filter for marketing methods to free listings, and then you have to see if your products are approved. And if they're not approved, I think one of the key issues I've found across a lot of merchant centers is that it's due to the CSS you have set up, because you have to ensure that the CSS you use for example, getting this discount on the Google Ads shopping clicks, this CSS also has to be eligible, and it has to be selected for free listings. If it's not selected for that, you won't show up, and then you have this screen. So you really have to make sure that this is done, because everything else won't get you anywhere if this is not correct, because then you are just not eligible. It's like the door is closed. Like, no, sorry, you have to go away. So you have to really get this right. Then second thing, and you could probably do like a whole webinar about it, but I want to keep it short and concise. Optimizing product titles towards discoverability. So something that makes sense here, same as with like Google Ads optimization. So brand, relevant generic terms, no useless model names or stuff that users don't need. So I mean, the Beurer BM59, what is that? Like, oh, they have a lot of like some decent reviews, but don't really understand that. But the Withings, BPM, Connect Blood Pressure Monitor is just way better. Same goes for product descriptions. I want to make sure that I don't go too much over time. So I recommend everybody also maybe check the recording afterwards and check the slides. So same principle applies here for product description. Positive reviews. The key thing here is make sure your GTINs are clean and you have brand, SKU, and or MPN as a fallback in place. I pasted the exact quote here from the Google documentation. Display of ratings is dependent on accuracy and completeness of your product data, such as GTNs, MPNs, and brand names. For your own shop, either use a supported review aggregator. Don't have a specific recommendation here. We previously used a Reviews.io. It worked well. There are other products out there. Don't know if Channable has a product. If they have, you should probably use the Channable product. Or sign up for product ratings yourself. You can also then embed that. Actively work on getting users to leave reviews is also something important. So could be incentives, reminders, just check the compliance for incentives, and parcel flyers. And then we quickly go through the offsite content, which the key learning for you here is, especially UGC is important. It heavily influences AI responses, but this is like very general, very broad research. You have to check for your own vertical and for your own product. Reddit might be relevant, Reddit might not be relevant. YouTube might be relevant, YouTube might not be relevant. The key for us here is thinking about Reddit, thinking about YouTube, thinking about Facebook. And Facebook, I know, Facebook is dead. Facebook groups are huge now in AI search. I know you wouldn't believe, but it's the case. I did a podcast with Steve Toth, CEO of Notebook Agency. If you have time, I recommend to watch it. It's Masters of Search podcast, Steve Toth. He also talked about Facebook groups. I couldn't believe it. Like, why is this a thing now? But it's the same idea with Reddit and YouTube. It's just it's user generated content, and makes a lot of sense for AI to look at that, to ensure that it's not like marketingified content. Just important reminder: always check your own prompts to see which citation sources matter most. So don't take this as granted across all verticals. Yeah, depending on the niche. For example, here, Google AI mode, is it worth switching from dual 24 monitors to ultra-wide monitors for work? Then you can see in the sources also Reddit shows up because there's an exact thread talking about that question, thinking of switching from dual monitors to an ultra-wide. And then this is also part of the citations. So you can definitely try to step into the conversation there. So for example, if you see that, I mean, if you're Samsung and your products are mentioned here, even if like you're a smaller brand, it's just a very simple example. You can make sure that your products are mentioned. You also create a positive sentiment around it. If users have questions, you answer the questions, you provide additional information. Just always make sure it's valuable. Like, do not spam. Always make sure it's valuable. It also makes sense to collaborate with niche blogs. So sometimes, for example, here, I ask a question specifically around the product in ChatGPT. Can you recommend the Odyssey G9? And then you can see in the sources that this blog from Tech Guy Steph shows up, which is basically a review of this product. So it's basically influencer marketing suddenly also being relevant for AI search. So this definitely also makes sense to think about. And then YouTube. So sometimes YouTube has huge real estate on the SERP. So for example, is in this AI overview here on Google for the question dual 24-inch monitors versus ultra-wide for work, we have this direct YouTube embed, which is enormous, and also it's part of the sources. So this definitely makes a lot of sense. And we did some experiments here. So the short TLDR for you: check for matches from your existing video library with search or prompts that are particularly relevant to your users' buying journey. Then optimize video title for relevant keywords to optimize discoverability, and the same goes for description. Why? Because in the selection process, if your video becomes part of the sources, it won't check the full video and full transcript immediately because it's very inefficient. It will check the meta data first, so title and description. So you have to ensure that this is done right. We will also do an interesting experiment soon where we have a video and the thumbnail will be legit, the title will be legit, the description will be legit, but the video itself will just be like a monkey clapping or with an instrument. So we'll make sure if Google understands that. And yeah, optimize the video thumbnail, because if the video is embedded so hugely here in the AI overviews, the thumbnail has to ensure that people engage with it. And yeah, your action plan, it's 5 things. First, so today, tomorrow, check your product feed. So this action plan is across all the different levers. So first one is check your product feed eligibility for free listings, because otherwise your products can't show up in the carousels. Then second, run 10 to 15 meaningful prompts or searches in Google and ChatGPT and take a closer look at the response structure and the sources. Then start optimizing, and with optimizing I mean title, description, etc., thinking about reviews for your 10% best-selling products, because the best-selling products, there's usually a reason, good pricing, high demand, whatever. So do not start with like random products, start with the top ones. And then start creating and optimizing the first 10 decision phase on-site content pieces. So something like dual 24H monitors versus, or the best espresso machines under certain price points. And then fifth, check if your brand or products are already discussed on Reddit, also maybe other platforms, Facebook groups. And if you have existing content on YouTube, to optimize for quick wins. If you do not have existing content on YouTube, you don't have to have a big production. You could also use something like a webinar recording, depending on if your product is like makes sense with webinars, or maybe even just a behind the scenes video or something. Just have to make sure that if you run your prompts or your searches, you see YouTube being cited, and you feel like we would fit in there with our video and with the response. And yeah, with that being said, this is, with huge overtime, our quick, we can't call it quick, our hopefully comprehensive run through how to optimize for AI search if you're a retailer or if you have an e-com brand.
Nice. Thanks a lot, Niklas. No problem that you went a bit over time. I think it's only good when we push this on YouTube, and it has more to quote. Maybe before we go to the end, one last thing to mention. Niklas already mentioned product feed is important, specifically the Google Shopping one. Google is also about to launch a lot of new attributes, which are also becoming more important if you want to be found. So make sure you rank for specific filters you can search for on Google. Also, we're adding new AI features inside Channable to make it easier to optimize all those titles, descriptions, and other attributes. And we give beta access to our next speaker, Ruben Runneboom, and he will show in the next webinar, next level e-commerce webinar, how he uses all of that. So make sure you check that out. Then you see some questions already asked in the questions bar. So I go through them, ranked by the most popular ones. First one is from Mael. It's about which tools Niklas is using. I think you already mentioned one tool to rank AI search. Do you have other, that was Peak AI, do you have other recommendations?
No, Peak AI for me is the best tool, best price for value also.
It's also a German tool, right?
Yeah, it's from Berlin, yeah.
Nice. Then I think the second question, how do you measure success of AI search? That's with those kind of tools?
Yeah, so we have 3 levers. Yeah, it depends a little bit how you frame it, but I would suggest to look at visibility. And if your brands or your products are mentioned, and also if you, with your domain or content you have worked on, is part of the sources, then obviously classic cookie-based tracking based on AI referral traffic. But there will be cases, and depending on the products, etc., there might be a lot of cases where users do not directly click, but they go to Google then after they discovered it on ChatGPT and perform a search. So I would highly recommend to implement whatever form of self-reported attribution, post-purchase survey, however you want to call it, where you ask people, how did you find brand? And give an option, either a required free text field, and then if you have a lot of orders, just take all the responses and run it through an LLM and let it summarize the responses for you. You don't have to go through it one by one manually. Or you give drop-down options or something like that, but then you have to really make sure that it's clear to people that you're talking about AI or like ChatGPT, etc. So the option has to be super stupidly simple. But yeah, you should definitely look at that, and then you have to triangulate a little bit. So it's difficult, but you have to take your cookie-based attribution data, and you have to take your post-purchase survey data, and you have to come up with your own conclusions. So if ChatGPT is higher in post-purchase survey, but is lower on last click, and last click Google Ads is high, they will probably work together. Like ChatGPT does the discovery part, Google Ads does the final selling part. Yeah, this would be, I mean, there's a lot to it, but this is like, in essence, what you should focus on.
Got it. Thanks. Then one question about the quality of ChatGPT and Gemini. How would you compare that? Not sure if I understand the question correctly. Maybe you do.
Yeah, I would maybe just based on how good the responses are, etc. So I think Gemini has really made a lot of improvements also with the newer Google models, etc. So I would say, so I personally, we use Claude, for example, at the company. We started using it in November 2024 already. So I'm pleased to see a lot of people now seeing the value of Claude more. But yeah, I mean, ChatGPT is still, there's data about Gemini currently growing strongly, but ChatGPT is still the predominant AI tool used, especially for consumers. So even if I, for example, personally don't use ChatGPT a lot, I see the significance when we think about how to make clients successful. So, and I think you have to be like neutral in that sense. So it doesn't make sense to make your own preference the determining force of how you think about the impact for your business. So yeah, I hope this somehow answers the question.
To me, it does. And the last question from Dennis. You showed how you could mine Reddit for questions. Is there a workflow to do it in bulk?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. So Reddit, I mean, there's a reason why Reddit sells like these license agreements to OpenAI, etc. There is a Reddit API, but I'm not sure if you can really scrape it in that sense, because if you could, then why should OpenAI do these licensing agreements? So honestly, I do not know. I would suggest rather not. But TBD. So Dennis, if you find a way, please let me know. Please write me on LinkedIn, and then we can share something about it. Would definitely be interesting, because we use it a lot for like the Reddit answers part.
Nice. Cool. I think with that, we came to an end of this webinar. Do you have anything to add?
No, I only want to thank you, Niklas, and actually thank you for taking a bit longer, because this also helps everyone actually to get more insights on how to do it. And I would say there are a lot of practical tips that now everyone can follow to start basically overcoming the big challenge we always hear is, hey, traffic is dropping, LLMs are taking over, how do I get in there? These are the things to do. So thanks a lot for all the practical examples. Hope to have you next time. But we will be in touch, Niklas, and thanks a lot for now, and have a lot of fun in San Francisco.
Thanks so much, guys. All the best to you.
Thank you for joining Next Level eCommerce. If you want to see more, check out our YouTube or give us a follow on LinkedIn to get more e-commerce tips and tricks. See you at the next one.